Hey guys, Mike Adleski here, trying again to be, I don't know, put more content out and stuff, especially nowadays. It seems like everybody is losing their minds on any powerlifting related anything, and it's just a bunch of just spinning wheeled, just forum regurgitating, just drivel. I don't know what else to call it. There's just we have such a unbelievable access to the compendium of all human knowledge, all shared human knowledge in the palm of our hand, and just, man, it hurts. Like, fitness is just who can market things the best, who can talk the most confidently without actually being good at anything, and just whoever can cater to tugging at the heartstrings of the dumbest person, and then, you know, they find 100 other dumb people just like them, just to make the dumbest, angriest mob, and just turns into a knee-jerk party. But anyway, I want to start putting out some more content, just you know, stuff that I've learned and done over the years. My body's just in shambles now, and none of it, I wish it just had to do with me destroying my body with lifting, but it's not. It's just my body and the way it was designed, not for athleticism or movement or strength whatsoever. But anyway, got a cool question from Dustin. He asked what my web of exercises look like for my max effort lower stuff. So I am a raw, drug-free lifter in the USAPL and IPF most of the time. I've done a couple of USPA meets, I've done SPF meets in the past, unsanctioned meets. I like competing for meet directors that I like, not necessarily just like adhering to one federation, but drug-free. And again, the internet has led me to believe that I'm the only person that's done Westside and the conjugate method and like used max effort work successfully without the use of gear and drugs. You know, that's just ridiculous. But that'll be a whole other diatribe later on, I guess. So anyway, for those that don't know, the exercise web, it was just kind of a concept developed originally by Anatoly Bondarchuk, I think, the old Russian hammer throwing coach. That was just absolutely ridiculous. He had just pretty much everyone that trained with him medaled in the throwing events and stuff back in the day. But anyway, he was the like kind of the grandfather of working out systems of transferring the actual training people do to sport, and trying to cut out bullshit exercises and only really sticking with stuff that actually had carryover, that actually had transferred to distance on throws, and you know, speed in the takeoff, and just whatever, you know. He was kind of the first proponent. I know a lot of college coaches that do this now, of basically stopping football players, throwers, whatever, at 500 pounds in the squat, and just kind of that being the magic number. Anatoly Bondarchuk was doing this in, the 70s and the 80s and stuff, just because he noticed that athletes were slowing down too much with anything over that, and then their throws would suffer. So 500 seemed like a weight that most of them could still do quickly, a lot of forced power generating and stuff. But then he was a much bigger proponent of like different weighted throws and using different implements for training and stuff like that, but only sticking with about like 9 or 10 exercises, you know, for years on a quadrennial cycle. So he developed a web of exercises to figure out exactly what transferred for each of the athletes he was working with. But anyway, so Westside uses a similar concept of just, you know, just having a web of exercises. It's basically a web of milestones to hit, just to kind of let them know where their actual competition lifts are. And for those of you that haven't read any of the Westside manuals or anything, I think they're much better than the Westside, the Principles book. I forget what it's called right now. It's late as shit. I'm so goddamn tired. Whatever. The book that Louis wrote about Westside. But there's also a couple of training manuals that are specifically for bench, specifically for squat, specifically for deadlift. The bench one's sticking out in my mind for some reason, just because I remember some of those numbers. Like, it was talking about if you wanted a 405 bench, then you had to bench press 225 X amount of times. Your 2-board press needed to be X amount of weight. You know, you needed to be able to bench the 100-pound dumbbells 17 times in one set or something like that. It was just a list of kind of things to go off of to accurately estimate exactly where you are and when to kind of start pushing it and progressing, and either like do a meter test or something like that. So I got a couple of things I like using for my web for lower body stuff, and I'm in kind of a weird position now because all the exercises I used to use before I had a complete cartilage transplant in my right knee, where I've got 16 cadaver pieces in there now instead of any of my own cartilage. I've noticed that my exercises that used to transfer directly to my deadlift aren't really working as well anymore. So I've been trying to mess around a little bit, trying to kind of figure out exactly what works now, because I'm having a hard time figuring out on my own. So I can talk about what kind of worked previously with my my squats and deadlifts and stuff like that. So for squatting, I really liked using a 6 rep max on good mornings. As that number went up, that was pretty much a good solid indicator that my squat had gone up. Mostly because my squat looks like a folding chair collapsing in on itself. I think just being able to have a very, very strong lower back and not letting that be the thing that gives out would help me tremendously, kind of progressing my squat. Just the stronger all that stuff got. My deadlift is so hard and so fast off the floor, I don't think I've ever had like a hip weakness or anything. Basically, as long as I could get whatever weight I had on my back out of the hole, if my good morning just like squat stance, get a little lax with the form good morning, as long as that weight kept going up, so did my back squat. So some of the max effort variations I'd use for squat that I also noticed the same thing were some low close stance safety squat bar squats. Really any stance 14-inch cambered bar squats, those are absolutely brutal. And then really just doing a lot of when I was like trying to do front squats and stuff like that, I didn't really get much out of doing heavy front squats, but I noticed just kind of staying, pushing kind of rep maxes with like, stuff like 225, 315 and stuff, and that was mainly just assistance work after the fact. And then really doing weighted single leg movements too, like weighted Bulgarian split squats. When those weights go up, I just know my squat's gonna be going up too. For deadlift, it gets a little trickier. This is the one I'm having the really hard time with now, figuring out what the hell I'm doing. I know for me, I could probably put 1,200 pounds on the bar and rip it up to my knees, and then just that transfer, now anyway, that transfer from going from mainly back off the floor, mainly a back extension movement, to a hip extension, like really high hamstring dominant adductor hip extension driven movement. It's just a little different now. So I haven't been pushing like my RDLs as much, but I've known in the past, like when my RDLs, when I was hitting pretty ridiculous 3 to 6 rep maxes on that, basically the heavier those got, the heavier my deadlift was in a meet. I know my best raw deadlift in a meet is 804, and when I did that a couple weeks before, I hit 700 for 5 on an RDL, pretty handedly, pretty easy. As easy as that can fucking be. I still felt like I was gonna die, but it didn't feel like I was gonna die any more than other weights I've done, like lighter weights and stuff. But it got done somehow. So RDLs for sure, 6 rep maxes, 10 rep maxes. I really like just taking a 500 pound RDL, and if I can hit that around like 20-25 times without feeling like absolute death, I know my deadlift's going in a good direction. And then along with that, I love doing light banded deadlifts. Again, the band really starts to kick in kind of right above my knee level, where I start having problems with that hip extension, and then it's just straight hamstrings locking that thing out, it feels like. So as that 1 rep max goes up, so does my deadlift, and I'm noticing that that's the case now too. So at least that's still one indicator lift, one kind of key lift in my web that's still working for me. Sumo deadlifts, a 5-6 rep max on my sumo deadlifts, somewhere around there. The higher that got, the better my deadlift was. I know doing like some single ply deadlift work and stuff, I know when my raw sumo deadlift got a little bit higher. My suited conventional deadlift max just went through the roof. I think training both stances is super important. If you want to get better at pulling shit off the floor, pull shit off the floor in as many different ways as you possibly can. Especially once you kind of get like a little bit more technically sound. I mean, after 3 years of training, if your technique isn't dialed in, you're fucked. You need to go find something else to do. There's no point in doing technique work anymore. It's time to actually get stronger, like, for sure. I mean, obviously you shouldn't let it go totally to hell or anything, but you should be, you know, you should be able to do the lift for sure after a couple of years of training, and it's time to do something a little different. I'm sure there's other stuff, you know, I'm a huge fan of RDLs. Chain deadlifts as well, putting about 200 pounds of chain on the bar and then just finding the heaviest thing I can pick up with it. That is absolutely brutal and has tremendous carryover. Also, one thing that's not really kind of an exercise, but the bar I do use for deadlifts is this old crappy Power Systems bar. It's about 36 millimeters thick, which is about like 8 or 10 millimeters thicker than a competition bar. It has no whip in it. It's rusty. It just rips the skin off your hands. It does not whip at all. It doesn't bend, nothing. So I always use that bar for deadlift training for the most part, unless I'm doing a meet with a deadlift bar. Then the last like 3 or 4 weeks I'll toss some weight on that and give that a shot. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of the short version of it. I didn't even mean to talk this long. So I'm gonna hopefully get to some more questions tonight or tomorrow morning. I'm not sure, but hopefully that kind of helped you out. And then yeah, maybe I'll do another video of actually how to construct your web of exercises and to figure that stuff out. But yeah, thanks for watching.